What is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 8 of the Golden Dice podcast. With me, I have the one and only Tommy is my co-host.
What's up, Jack? I'm not going to thank you for having me because I'm your co-host and it's my right to be here.
That's what I like to hear.
That's
no
it.
more thanking to me.
I'm being assertive tonight, turning over a new leaf.
Good, man. You're moving up in the world. Proud to see you doing that.
Don't tell my wife.
All right, so this week, of course, again, we went to a weekly tournament, and you had missed the past 2 weeks, but this week you got to go again, not on Monday night with me, but you got to go on Wednesday night by, with some of the other people.
Don't say that so loud, dude. She might hear you, all right?
Oh, that's awkward, dude.
Yeah.
That's awkward. Dude, you should have a headset in when we're recording, man.
You're right. I got to be more cautious.
Sorry, she'll just listen to this and figure out that way.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And it's in the beginning of the episode, so even if she listens to 5 minutes and turns it off, you're already in trouble. Yep. But so I don't know about you, but my weekly tournament was not what I expected or had hoped at all. So with my regional, not this weekend, next weekend, I've been leaning towards Sabine Ezra. So of course, I'll bring that to the weekly store tournament just to get some extra practice. I know that we still have a few guys practicing for the one in Maryland, so there'll be some good decks there. And so I bring it, and I went 1-2, and it was not very fun. And the first loss was a complete blowout to Elite Boba, Elite Seven Sister. I took 5 damage the first round. Second round, he rolled out, got the 2 on the Seven Sister and the resource on a Maul Saber, and then he bait and switched for 6 damage to kill Sabine. And I was like, all right, this game's just about done. And that was like a 5-minute game. So that was not a fun way to start Monday night tournament. After that, I played Joe, and he was running the Rebel Trader, First Order Stormtrooper, and a Night Sister. And it was basically a Friends in High Places vehicle type deck. So it was super interesting, but not something I really feel like I'm worried about at seeing at a regional. But I was able to do enough damage. And it basically came down to the last round. I had Sabine alive, but he needed to do 5 or 6 damage. I think it was 5. And he had 2 Sonic Cannons out. And so basically all he had to do was roll the 5. He went first. And yeah, so he rolled out and got double blanks, which gave me enough time to play my running interference and then roll out and play Never Tell Me the Odds and do just enough damage to kill both of his stormtroopers that action. So that was basically down to the wire. That was a lot of health to chew through for a 2-character deck. And then the last round, 1-1 going into it, and I lost to the OTK deck. I didn't see Second Chance, didn't see Hyperspace Jump, didn't see Never Tell Me the Odds. So it was kind of a rough matchup. I didn't see Impersonate. So it was just, Sabine dying at the end of round 2 when he's, resetting the Seven Sister for a second or third time. I just didn't really stand a chance with the way I drew like that. So disappointing to go 1-2, especially losing to the 2 decks that would probably be at a regional and beating 1 deck that I probably won't have to worry about too much. So I was disappointed with this week. I don't know how. I hope your week went a little better.
Yeah, my week went a little better than that, but I mean, I wouldn't get, that's a small sample size, so I wouldn't get too discouraged.
Yeah.
And, you look at who you're playing to and see, I think it was Cody who was playing the OTK deck.
Yep.
Yeah, Cody's really good, so he got top 8 at Boonton. So there's good players, and Joe's a good player, even though he likes crazy decks like his.
He loves Friends in High Places, man.
He does love Friends in High Places. There's no doubt about that. But he's a really good player as well. I was able to sneak out, like you said, on Wednesday night to attend our tournament at All the King's Men. We had 7 there. I played against some crazy decks as well. Again, I got paired first round against Joe, who makes the rounds to all the events. The guy plays a ton of Destiny, and he likes to mix it up and keep it fresh. And he had some sort of Ventress monstrosity. I think it was Ventress, Royal Guard, Magna Guard. It was all single dice, and I'm not sure exactly what he was going for. I played Tarkin Seven Sister because I really haven't had time to build anything different, so I basically threw Hidden Motive in and went with my regional list, and that game went well for me. The second round I played against a guy named Jacob. He's a newer guy. He played Elite Han 2, Elite Luke 2, and then he had the plot that gives him an extra shield. And I'll tell you what, he was making some resources, claiming Han's dice when they were resources almost immediately, and using Luke's power action effectively to deal some pretty good damage. But I was able to tough through that one as well and just deal enough indirect that, both his characters died almost simultaneously. And then the third round, I played Cody, who apparently is also making his rounds because we both played both these guys on Monday and Wednesday. In the last round, he was playing the Blue-Red OTK. Again, he's made a few changes to it. I think just minor changes to try to add a little more consistency to starting with Maul's Saber. And I was able to win that as well. I was really able to get in his hand and disrupt him that way, whether I was hitting combo pieces or just limiting his rerolls and using my mitigation wisely. The big turning point was I was able to hit a Feel Your Anger for 2 dice, which really almost made him lose a turn effectively for that deck. And that, you know, when you get into the 3rd or 4th round with Tarkin against that deck, you do have enough damage output to start picking off the ancillary characters that he wants to Price of Failure or Leadership and really take away his combo pieces. So I was able to take the event, which was nice. I got 5 packs. I pulled all garbage, and Cody got 3 packs and pulled, I think, Finn and Force Wave. So technically Cody won the event.
Well, yeah, I went 1 and 2 and pulled did I pull a Yoda this week? No, I pulled a Greedo this week and I pulled a Yoda last week.
Yeah, I feel like you pull a Yoda like every week.
This is my 4th. I could have had 5 in a draft, but I passed it on because I already had 2.
See, that's good karma. That's what's happening there.
Yeah, this one I'm looking to trade it. You know, I don't really have a need for this Yoda, but I don't know. It seems like most people kind of have it already in our area, so might just go up on eBay so I can put my funds towards Legion so I don't go broke with that coming out.
Oh man, that is going to be an investment. If you need your miniatures painted, let me know, Jack. I like painting miniatures.
Yeah, now that you're retiring from Destiny, you'll take up miniature painting.
Dude, I'm so lost right now. I don't know what to do. I'm terrible at this game.
So yeah, but Legion looks cool. But basically, if FFG makes a Star Wars game, I'll probably throw my money at it, which is depressing a little bit. But yeah, so I mean, I went 1 and 2, like I said, this week with Sabine Ezra, but I do have some good stuff with it. Like I'm playing in that online Artificery tournament, the season 5, and I'm also playing in a Padawan tournament for Artificery, which is basically their patrons. So I'm playing in 2 online tournaments, and I'm 4-0 in season 5 and 1-0 in the Patreon tournament. So total 5-0 with Sabine, playing against some pretty good decks. I beat a Poe Hondo, I beat Tarkin Seven Sister, I beat Hero Vehicles. I forget what else I've played so far. It's slipping my mind. But yeah, so it's like been good decks that I've been able to beat. So I know Sabine Ezra is good. Like that's just obvious. But some nights like last night just make you feel bad. And, you know, I'm worried that the world might be against me when I go to a tournament and I'll just roll poorly and draw poorly. And I'll completely regret taking a 2-character deck with 19 health to or 18 health to a tournament. But I'm still feeling pretty good about it. I still think that's where I'm leaning towards, unless something drastically changes in the next week or so with testing.
Hopefully we can get together and I can get a few games in with you to do my part and try to help you out.
Definitely. I'm counting on you, man. But yeah, so that just wraps up about our week, what we've done and what we saw, what we played, and how that all went. And moving on, we'll go through. We have 4 regionals to say the top 8. And we have a few deck lists to go through from that.
It's crazy. So many regionals and galactic qualifiers. It's just so much Star Wars Destiny happening right now. It's great.
Yeah, it's just been like, I almost feel overwhelmed trying to make sure I have all the information. It's like, since I've become a content creator, I feel like I've lost a little bit of time I've had for testing because I have to make sure all the ducks are in a row tonight and stuff like that. But I'm still loving it regardless. But we had only one of the regionals was in the United States, and it was in Chicago. We had 2 in Australia and then 1 in Poland past weekend that we have full information for. So we'll start off with the Chicago one. There's a lot of good information out there about that, as it was the only United States one. And I'll just read through the top 8 real quick. The winner was Obi Maz, and then second was Sabine Yoda, Boba 7th, and the blue-red OTK deck were 3rd and 4th. And then the rest of the top 8 were Hero Vehicles, Kylo 2000, E Yoda, Rookie Pilot, E Ezra. So another take on Hero Vehicles, but different from the standard version we've seen. And Hero Mill rounded out the top 8. So we have the deck list for the Obi-Wan Maz at this point of us recording, and then we have it for Boba 7th, which both of those we'll be looking over. But I really wish we had that Yoda Rookie Pilot Ezra deck to look at, because that intrigues me so much.
Yeah, that does sound pretty cool.
And I think Agent Zion was talking about that a little bit. Actually, I don't know who did the write-up from Artificery. I don't remember, but one of them mentioned going against it, and that was like their last round in Swiss, and they got beat by it, and they were running Hero Vehicles, and they just were better suited for a mirror match, just because of the shield generation, I guess, and getting his stuff out a little bit quicker. And that extra reroll from the Rookie Pilot is probably pretty nice. But don't have that deck list, so we'll take a peek at Obi Maz real quick, and I'll read through that deck list. And of course, these are on Star Wars Destiny database for the public, so you can go and check out there too if you would like to see it. The battlefield is Outer Rim Outpost, which is claim, gain a resource, and draw a card. And then it's Elite Obi-Wan Kenobi from Legacies and Elite Maz Kanata. There's 11 upgrades with 2 Ancient Lightsabers, 2 Force Speeds, 2 Maz's Goggles, 1 Rey's Lightsaber, 2 Shotos, and 2 Vibra Knives. Supports are 2 Maz's Vaults and 2 Run Interference. And then there's 15 events with 1 caution, 2 concentrate, 2 easy pickings, 1 hasty exit, 2 heightened awareness, 1 hidden motive, 2 hyperspace jump, 2 overconfidence, and 2 truce. And we've talked about Obi-Maz a little bit before, and we both agreed that it was a good deck. We've never denied that, but it almost seemed like one of those gateway decks where it's probably not a top deck, but it's definitely going to be around. It's going to be at tournaments, and it's a solid deck, but it's probably a little too fair, especially if Maz dies. Then Obi-Wan's he's a beefy guy with some heavy damage sides, but he's very suspect to easy pickings with having 2 3s and 2 shield sides. He's just, he's really fair. And this kind of makes it a little bit different, kind of does that action cheating with the 4-speed special, get 2 additional actions, and then do concentrate, and then you could swing for 6 to 9 damage easily if your opponent's, not mitigating a 3 die already sitting out there. So it can be pretty crazy, and I see the potential in this. And this is probably my favorite list so far because it almost feels a little bit like a Sabine. Still a little bit more fair, though, with it running 2 Maz's Vaults, 2 running interference, and 2 hyperspace jumps. So I got a little throwback to the Sabine deck I'm running, but I really like this, and it's really cool to see Obi-Wan doing so well at a regional.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more like a Sabine deck, and I think that that's kind of a neat place for it because part of the problem with Sabine is that she is a slightly fragile. I mean, she's 11 health. She has access to second chance, but like you were saying, if you don't see the second chance or the hyperspace jump, sometimes she just gets melted away a little too quick, where Obi-Wan's got that built-in, I'm getting a shield. Once you put a Shoto on him, he's getting 2 shields. Maybe he's taking a shield away with the Shoto instead, but there's a lot more built-in durability to Obi-Wan where, you just by putting upgrades on him and by his ability in general, you're going to be surviving a little bit longer. So I think that's what this is a hybrid between like a Sabine, want to wreck your face and roll out some dice and make it so that you can't mitigate them, but at the same time be able to have the staying power. You have 1 more life and that shield ability, which is it's really cool. I love it. I think he probably caught a lot of people by surprise too, because a lot of these pieces people aren't expecting to see in that character pairing. And I think it's definitely an underrated advantage to sit down against an opponent and you immediately start making assumptions about their deck. And if you're wrong, you can get burnt. And I think that is a distinct advantage to have when you know what they're playing and what's in their list, but they don't know what's in yours. That is much more valuable than people realize.
Yeah, it's definitely that advantage. Most people probably weren't expecting a hyperspace jump in that list, especially. But one thing that worries me, and this is the same where I have with Sabine, is just having a two character deck with one of them being the obviously superior damage dealer. And with the way things currently are with OTK being around and them easily, not easily, but are definitely able to pick off Obi-Wan late round 2, I think you'll be in bad shape because it would definitely be tough for Maz Kanata to finish out a game in which Obi-Wan dies round 2.
So here's what I actually was having a conversation with Scott earlier today, and I'll give Scott the credit for this, but Maz's goggles, I don't think it's there for the focus and the resources. I mean, as nice as those two things are, that special, being able to get in people's hands, I think the more a combo deck is relevant in the meta, the more valuable it is to get into someone's hand and to rip things out. And I think Maz's goggles special is extremely valuable in that situation. I think that is what warranted that inclusion in this deck more so than the focus and the resources. I think that we're going to see a lot of decks start teching in cards that can, disrupt your hand.
Yeah, because I mean, 2 of the top decks, or even 3, I guess in my mind, and there are plenty, of course, but like you said, OTK, Sabine, and the hero vehicles, if you're ripping some of their key stuff out of their hands, it's going to hurt a lot. And especially we're at a point in the game where your 30 card deck, almost every card is meaningful or puts you towards your win condition. It's not like Spirit Rebellion or Awakenings where you maybe had, 6 to 4 kind of almost dead cards that you kind of put in because you really weren't sure what else to put. At this point in time, we're probably putting 30 cards that mean a lot to our deck. And especially as the next 2 sets are released, I feel like discard sides and hand removal are just going to go up in value because of all the combo plays that are going to potentially exist.
Absolutely.
With 2 more sets coming out.
And it's not just the hit combos. I mean, just think about it this way. When you're building a deck and you lay out the cards that you want in that deck, how many cards, or you go through the DB, like at the end of the list construction, if you're just going through and adding all the stuff that you want, you're coming out with 45, 50 cards in the deck, and you're like, wow, I got to cut this many cards. Now, Now think about when you're playing against someone and you have these, you've narrowed it down to this many cards and people are just picking off those cards from you, maybe at key times, maybe not. Maybe you have all your upgrades out and they took a shot at it and they pulled another upgrade that you probably weren't going to play anyway. That's going to happen from time to time. But the fact of the matter is that right now, every card in a deck, in a well-constructed deck, should have a very distinct purpose in that deck. And now you can take those cards away from people. And that's a good thing for the game. It's a good equalizer for the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And we talked about this several times. I don't know if we ever mentioned it in the podcast, but if you play standard, constructed as your main thing, this is the smallest the card pool will ever be again right now.
It is. You're never going to, if for standard, you'll never have less than 4 sets from this point on.
Yep.
And if you think that it's hard to build a deck now, just wait
for
3 months and then 6 months, allegedly, depending on Fantasy Flight's actual timeline, and it's gonna get crazy. It's gonna get overwhelming, and then you're gonna be like, "Whew, thank God there's only 4 sets to build from." It's intense.
I'm hoping to make PAX Unplugged this year, and that'll probably be around the time where there's 4 sets, right? Because Empire at War was legal at PAX Unplugged, right?
Yep.
So that'll be interesting to see how that shapes out. Man, I can't imagine making a deck with that many cards available to me. That's a good thing to have. But yeah, so this Obi Maz deck, probably my favorite one so far. I like a lot. It looks like it has a lot of potential because I played Obi Maz before, but I kind of went with the standard what you would think, and it necessarily wasn't the greatest. Could also been my plane. Totally admit that. Wasn't the craziest. Wasn't in love with it. It seemed good, but I wasn't sure about it. But this list excites me a little bit more than some of the other lists that I've seen and or played with myself.
Let's also reference back to a previous podcast, I think when we had Rebel Gray on, and we were talking about more unique character pairings ending up on the list of regional winners. And this is another one, I think just 1 week after. We got another unique character pairing that's winning an event, and it's just pushing that variation up.
Yeah, it's great. So we got, I'll say later in the podcast, I have some of my dumb yet amazing pie charts up that we'll be able to cycle through and see what's won so far, all the way from the winners, runners-ups, top 4s to the top 8s. So that's something that I'm excited to talk about as we get down to there. But we'll move on to the top 4 list of the Seventh Sister Boba Fett deck. And again, this made the top 4, and I'll read off the deck list real quick. And it is Ewok Village is the battlefield, which is claim, remove all shields from a character. And then it has 9 upgrades with 2 ancient lightsabers, 2 force illusions, 1 heirloom lightsaber, 2 ID9 seeker droids, and 2 Maul's lightsaber. And then it has 21 events, 2 bait and switches, 2 doubts, 2 electroshocs, 1 feel your anger, 2 friends in low places, 2 frighten, 1 he doesn't like you, 2 hidden motive, 2 lightsaber pull, 1 mislead, 1 truce, 1 vandalize, and 2 well connect. But this is almost another deck that is kind of based a little bit around Maul's lightsaber, just because the potential of that card is just absolutely bonkers. Because you could roll it out with Seven Sister, resolve it with her dice, power action it back in, and you have the chance of resolving it with Boba, but you also have that special that you could do the damage with, which is crazy to think about. And like I said, this was my first match on Monday, and it absolutely blew me out of the water with the bait and switch, which I actually haven't had played on me for a while, so I almost forgot it existed.
Ooh, that bait and switch, so good.
Yeah, bait and switch for 6 damage really hurt and really was out of nowhere. And the deck list seems like it works well. It seems like there's a few tweaks from the Miami regional list, and he also probably didn't have 10 other people or 11 other people running the same deck with him, so he had a little more breathing room of what people were expecting, because even on Monday, when I played against it, that was the first time I had. And I wasn't sure what to go for exactly. Figured some of his removal would be spotty yellow, like electroshock, and he has friends in places and well connected. But the Seven Sisters probably the one doing the crazy damage, because that's the only way Maul's lightsaber is going to get on the field, is if it's played on the Seven Sister.
Yeah, I like the frighten inclusion too. I think that's really, between that and the bait and switch, you could really get some surprise kills off, where hopefully people at this point, excluding Jack, of course, know how to play around bait and switch.
Yeah, I don't know how to play.
I'm just kidding. Everybody gets burnt with that card, but you should try to keep in mind that your opponent has access to that in Yellow Villain. Turn one of your dice showing a resource to any side, and it has ambush, so it'll allow you to resolve dice immediately following that. But a bait and switch on a Maul Saber, or a bait and switch to turn to pair Maul Saber, is brutal. But also adding Frighten into that, where you have a character behind 3 shields because of a caution, that you feel much safer now, so you're not rushing to resolve dice, and then somebody hits you with a Frighten, is much different than if somebody hits you with a Intimidate, because there's no ambush on the Intimidate. And Frighten is ambush, remove a total of up to 3 shields from any number of characters, and I mean that will really accelerate. That's like 3 damage out of hand almost. And it's situational, but it's equivalent.
Yeah, it's good too because it doesn't necessarily waste a shield. Like it's always going to remove 3. You know, if they have 3 shields, even if it's 2 on one character and 1 on another. Whereas Intimidate, of course, is free, but would only hit 1 target. But yeah, this is another unique list popping up a little bit since the Miami one. It kind of made waves, and it's just cool to see Boba Fett, one of the starter characters, popping up in that top set. But again, it's with the Seventh Sister, so it's just kind of showing how powerful of a character she is at Elite. I mean, it's 5 die start without any upgrades.
Yeah, it looks really neat, you know. With the combination of his special with the Maul's lightsaber, like you said, and we just went over the Frighten, which also combos with the Maul's lightsaber. It looks strong. I think you're going to start seeing people really relying on hidden motive and doubt as we see Maul's lightsaber become more and more popular, because I feel like those are 2 removal cards that are very strong against that weapon. Also, I think people are going to start to learn the value of their shield sides in that matchup, where you can put a shield on a character and then you can, you know, leave maybe a shield side in the pool, or just leave a shield side in the pool in general if you've already got one, or wait till they deal their melee, then resolve a shield, just to slow down that power action a little bit.
That's definitely something that hopefully as time goes on, we'll be able to play around that a little bit more, because I mean, with two decks, this being one of them, the other one being OTK, of course, playing around that Maul's lightsaber is just such a great card, and being able to roll it in twice is just absurd. So best way to stop that is to get shields up. All right, so that is kind of our report so far from the top 8 of Chicago. Of course, I would love to dive into that Yoda rookie Ezra deck just to see into the mind of that 30 cards. But we don't have that list, but it is something that you can definitely keep your eyes out for, because the TOs from that regional are posting the deck list on Star Wars Destiny database. So it will be up if it's not up already by the time you're listening to this. Tommy, I got to ask, there's been a little uproar, I guess, about this. Like, what are your thoughts on the TOs from a regional posting the deck list online?
I don't really have an issue with people posting deck lists from regionals. I understand that people don't want to make that information public if they plan on attending multiple events, but I don't really see an issue with that, just because in the top cut your opponent's gonna see your deck list anyway. If you're really counting on that advantage of surprising someone, then you need to be playing something far enough off meta where they're actually going to be at a disadvantage just by not having reps in against it, not so much as knowing what's in your deck. I don't have a problem with it, although I do think that there is an advantage to some hidden information with your deck, but that's just me. I think that it's when you put yourself out there for a tournament, I think you should be ready to expose your deck, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the same page as you. Maybe I would push back and say maybe it's a little weird that the TOs are taking the list and posting them, but I know some people after the New Jersey one, especially, honestly, Sarcastics were kind of, and he wasn't like this. Honestly, Sarcastic was like, no, I went on stream. You know, I know that's kind of how it works. If I'm playing, a 30 card deck where it's 2 ofs everything, so it's really 15 unique cards in that deck, I know it's bound to get shown and people are just going to watch it and copy it. And that's just the way it is. And I think that's, if you're so concerned with your deck list getting out of you making a top 8, especially if it's streamed, then you should probably just drop before the top 8. And I know that kind of sounds like a jerk thing to say, but it just seems so weird for people to be so defensive about stuff within top 8s and being on streams and stuff like that. If you are worried about that, I would say then maybe not go to a regional, or if you're about to make the top 8, just drop right before that. I mean, that's just how anything goes that is streamed or live on TV. You know, it's when the Eagles run Philly and score a touchdown with Nick Foles, of course teams might copy that and try to pull off something similar. It's just the way it is, but you don't need to ask the Eagles permission to run that play on your own team. It just seems odd to me.
I mean, and you mentioned honestly Sarcastic, and I think that's an interesting take on it, because as a content creator and a gentleman who has a Patreon and, you know, a website and a YouTube channel, like between him and Mike and Nick, and they are benefiting from having that information. So I'm sure that from that standpoint, they would rather be the ones posting the deck list. But in his situation, I'm sure it's not that big a deal, because he's probably the best player in the world, or at least in the conversation. So people are going to want his perspective on it anyway. So people will go to hear what he has to say regardless, because he's respected. But from a content creator point of perspective, I would understand wanting to have, you know, exclusive rights to a list. I get that. Again, if you're at an event, you know, it's kind of a public deal at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if somebody were to, say they were a Patreon to the Hyperloops, and I think this actually happened with Artificery, a Patreon got an article, necessarily wasn't a deck list, but then posted it, in another Discord or sent it to other people and stuff like that. And I think that's out of line. Like if I was, if there was somebody that took Honestly Sarcastic's deck list as a Patreon and posted it somewhere before he played with it or something like that, at that point, that is, I think that's pretty low for him to, go out of his way to kind of ruin the surprise that Honestly Sarcastic had. But I did talk to him about it, Honestly Sarcastic, and he was like, yeah, don't worry about it. Cause I actually had for last week posted it on the database, and I didn't even think anything of it, but simply because I was just using it for us. But I got some cutback from that. But I messaged Honestly Sarcastic and I was like, hey man, like I hope I didn't step on your toes or anything. Like that totally wasn't my intention. I wasn't even thinking. I was just thinking, all right, I got to get this out there so my co-host and Rebel Gray can see it. So when we talk about it. But yeah, he was super cool about it. Super nice. He had no issues. He's like, hey man, I got in the top 8. I knew what I was getting into. So no worries.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's very, very friendly, very nice, and he gets it. And it sucks that bad things happen where people, maliciously do things with bad intent, and that's just the world we live in today. That not everybody has the same morals or same ethics, and it's a shame because people do things like that. And it's probably, you'll never see the day where that doesn't happen. It's unfortunate. We can police ourselves a little bit. We can frown upon it. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do?
Definitely. Yeah, we're pretty much on the same page about that. I was just curious. I didn't even think of that until, before the podcast. It just kind of popped into my mind as we were looking through the top 8 of Chicago and me remembering that the TOs were posting it. I don't think it was a big deal, but apparently the TOs said they were getting a lot of kickback in return of doing that. So they said next time they would do that, they would just make it clear in signups saying that the top 8 will be posted online.
I think that's a good way for them to approach it in the future. I think that's a good way for everybody to approach it. I think just being transparent and letting everybody know everything that you plan on doing, and it sucks to jump through hoops, but I think that's just always the best way to handle it. Same thing when we were talking about draft, is this going to be a snake draft or are we keeping what we draft? Just let people know so that people aren't making assumptions.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody on the same page before you sign up. Cool. So yeah, I just wanted to pick your brain at that and see where you fell on that. So we'll move on to one of the Australia regionals. I don't know. Adelaide. I have no idea. I'm so bad at pronouncing things.
I think it's Adelaide.
Adelaide. So we don't have any deck lists for this that we are going to touch on, but I'll read through the top 8 just so everybody's aware. And first we got the blue-red OTK. Then we have the Kylo 2 Mother Talzin deck. We have a Zeb Kanan and Hero Vehicles to round out the top 4. And then the top 8, last one in the top 8 were Tarkin Seven Sister, Poe Hondo, Qui-Gon Yoda, and Obi Maz. All those decks seem strong. I think the biggest, or maybe out of place a little bit, you could say, would be Qui-Gon Yoda. We don't see that all that often, but it's still not super surprising because I've seen people play and pilot it well. But it's still awesome to see no repeats, right? I'm not going crazy. There's no repeats in the top 8.
Yeah, I just love the diversity again. It's just great. It's great. I mean, and you might be seeing some float to the top more often than others, but, it's a lot of luck goes into winning an event too, and you hope that the best players win in every time. But sometimes people are at the disadvantage of roles, and it's just nice to see that there's just enough diversity still, and hopefully that continues.
So that's all we got for that Australia one. We'll move on to the second Australia regional, which is Perth, and we have 2 decks we're going to look at, which are the winner and the runner-up. The winning deck is Yoda Hondo. The second place, the runner-up, is Qui-Gon Aayla Secura. And then 3rd and 4th are Zeb Ray and the Blue-Red OTK. And then the final to round out the top 8 was a Yoda Hondo, a Hero Vehicles, Yoda Jetta. That's a mill deck, and Hero Vehicles again. So we'll start off with the Poe Hondo deck, which is interesting. And I actually got a chance to play with this, just kind of testing around on Tabletop Simulator, and actually against your deck when I was testing with Brian. He was playing the Seven Sister Tarkin, and this actually did extremely well against Seven Sister Tarkin. I don't know if it just happened to be the games we were playing against, but none of them were really close. Like we finished the game, I think Yoda had like 2 damage on him and Hondo had like, 3 or 4 damage on him. And I'll read the deck list and kind of explain how that kind of happened, because he was doing damage. It's not like he was doing nothing. But the battlefield is Frozen Wastes, has a plot, Fortify, which is after setup, give a character a shield. Then, of course, Yoda and Hondo, both at Elite, are the characters. And then there are 15 upgrades. We have 2 Cunning, 2 Force Illusions, 2 Force Speeds, 2 Force Waves, 2 Handcrafted Light Bows, 2 Lone Operatives, 1 Obi-Wan Kenobi's Lightsaber, 2 Second Chance. And then there's 15 events with 2 Easy Pickings, 2 Entangled, 1 Hyperspace Jump, 2 Impulsive, 1 Mislead, 2 Overconfidence, 2 Rebel, 1 Riposte, and 2 Vandalize is the deck list. And playing with it, basically, he was going for Yoda first, and I was able to get Lone Operative down second turn, I believe. And I was just able to get 2 shields and heal 2 every time. So it was super good to have that out there. And also, I was able to Cunny Lone Operative if he started to go for Hondo. So it was just a really good deck, and the mitigation package is, of course, good with 2 Easy Pickings, 2 Entangled, and then, of course, a Misled, 2 Overconfidence. But generally, people are going to go for Yoda first, so you have 4 of the best removal in the game, in my opinion, with the Easy Pickings and Entangle, so you don't have to worry too much about a yellow character. And one MVP of the deck playing with it was the Impulsive. So with Yoda having basically a focus side, if you wanted to resolve something else that wasn't a special, you could Impulsive his special to something else, but really what you want to be doing that on is his 2 focus or Hondo's focus, Impulsive that, and then with Yoda especially, 2 focus, now you're resolving a bunch of specials most likely. So this deck in testing was a lot of fun to play. It seemed pretty good, but still, again, we've talked about our worries a little bit with Hondo of bringing him to a regional is that people might just learn how to play around him and when to pay him, when not to pay him. And Yoda also doesn't have any damage sides on him either. So if they're paying off Hondo, then Yoda's probably not going to do damage unless you have some good upgrades on him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, in the testing that we did, I definitely felt that aggro decks were a little harder for Tarkin Seventh Sister to deal with. That said, I did not find specifically Yoda Hondo to be a bad matchup, but I agree, like, this has great removal package. It just, the more events that you have that affect multiple dice, the better, in my opinion. Vandalize, even though it's not technically removal, is just really strong in the sense that it will last, throughout the duration of the game. You've got so much sustain between Lone Operative and Second Chance and Yoda's shielding ability. It is just a strong deck. And I know we've talked about people playing around Hondo, but that could be said for anything unless it's broken. So the hope is that throughout the meta, people will learn how to adjust to playing each deck and just start making better choices. And then when that happens and people adjust and learn how to play against decks, hopefully the best players will rise to the top, and you'll see, people making the right choices of inclusions in their deck and playing the right way and resolving their dice in the correct order, and, being discarding to reroll at the right times or managing the resources properly. There's just so many nuances to this game, and just playing around Hondo is just one of many nuances. So that's something that is not easily done, and I don't think we can just use it as a throwaway statement and say, oh, we know how to play around Hondo now. You need to stay sharp, and you need to continue to practice these matchups over and over again. If you are trying to attend regionals, or if you're trying to be competitive, or just know the cards to expect. Well, they took Frozen Waste. They're going to special chain. They're probably trying to be a quicker style deck. Chances are they're including a hyperspace jump. I mean, that's a safe assumption when you see this character spread in Battlefield. Those are just the things that I think people need to be thinking when they sit down to play these decks.
And one card that this pilot put in that I didn't even necessarily think about was Rebel. And I have to say, playing, you have 2 Easy Pickings, you have 2 Entangles, but being able to potentially get, you would only have 4 uses normally out of those 4 cards. But Rebel adding an extra Easy Pickings to your deck, almost having a 3rd Easy Pickings or a 4th Easy Pickings, can be absolutely insane. And then you get to discard them after too if you want to discard them. So I thought that, and playing with that, Hondo has a discard side and Yoda has a discard side. So you're definitely going to be able to get that off and repeat with Easy Pickings, or even a hyperspace jump. Sorry, is not in your discard pile, so you would not be able to do hyperspace jump again. Still, Easy Pickings and Entangle, just being able to play them over and over again is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, that is definitely annoying. The one thing that I see when I look at this deck, that I don't even know if it matters for this deck, because you should be making piles of money with Yoda and Hondo, but there's no zero cost removal, which I find interesting, because I put zero cost removal like on a pedestal by itself. I mean, there's 2 things that I look for in removal, and it's, one, does it affect multiple dice, which this deck is putting at a premium. You want to affect multiple dice with the Overconfidence, Easy Pickings, Entangle affecting multiple dice. And 2 is, does it cost 0 for me? So taking Mislead over something like Hidden Motive or something like that is interesting. I know Hidden Motive isn't guaranteed removal, so some players prefer to know, oh, I'm going to remove that dice even if I have to, or that die, even if I have to spend a resource. So I don't know. I like zero cost removal personally, but I don't think it mattered for this player because, like I said, Yoda and Hondo make you plenty of money.
Yeah, I mean both. I mean Yoda's special does it, and Hondo is just awesome with stealing resources, and his two disrupted has to be one of my favorite things that he has on his die. I love resolving that against opponents, and then able to cunning his special and still get it off twice is good. So this deck, I have no idea on the scale of things how good this is. I've played 3 games with it and beat Tarkin Seven Sister 3 times with it. So I don't, I'm not saying that means anything, but I'm saying your deck is bad. So
I am aware my deck is bad. I have a 9th place to prove my deck is bad, or more that I'm bad than my deck.
No, you're great, dude. Don't let it bring you down.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm already there, Jack. I'm hit the ground floor. I'm in the basement.
And for anybody curious, he also posted what he played. And of course, this had 23 players at the regional. And first round, he beat a Mother Bala Trooper. Second round, he lost to a Poe Ayla. Third round, he beat a Palpatine 1. It's Elite Palpatine 1. Round 4, he beat an Obi Maz. Round 5, he beat the OTK blue and red version. Top 8, he beat a Hero Vehicles. And top 4, he beat a Zeb Ray, which I got to watch on stream a little bit of it. And man, he destroyed that deck. I don't think Zeb Ray really did anything bad. Probably played a pretty good game, but this pilot was just fantastic too. He had an answer to everything, and it was just fantastic to watch him play on that stream. And then in the finals is when he beat Qui-Gon Ayla. So he had a pretty good day. His only loss coming to Po2 Ayla, and then he lost to one game to Qui-Gon Ayla in the final round of the tournament. So he did very well for himself. And with that, the next deck we want to look at is the Qui-Gon Ayla Secura deck that came in second, simply because this is not something I've seen quite yet or seen do well. But I love seeing it simply because, as I mentioned before, when I first got into the game, Qui-Gon Rey was my first deck, and I played that for a while until about middle of SOR when I switched over to Han Rey. So Qui-Gon's still kind of my OG. He was my first single that I bought from All the King's Men in Pittman. So he was kind of, he's got a special place in my Destiny career. And I'll read off the deck list. And it has Obi-Wan's Hut as the battlefield, which is claim and give a blue character 1 shield or spend 1 resource to give a non-blue character 1 shield. And it's got Elite Qui-Gon, Elite Ayla. And then it has 10 upgrades with 2 Ancient Lightsabers, 1 Force Illusion, 2 Handcrafted Light Bows, 1 Heirloom, 1 Obi-Wan's Lightsaber, 1 Rey's Lightsaber, 2 Shotos. For supports, it has 2 It Binds All Things, and then it has 18 events with 2 Ataru Strikes, 1 Destiny, 2 Force Misdirections, 2 Guards, 2 Heightened Awareness, 2 Riposte, 2 Sound the Alarm, 2 Synchronicity, 1 Power of the Force, and 2 Unbreakable. Overall, I really like the upgrade build, and I like It Binds All Things with it, simply because, I guess you could play Reaping the Crystal because you have, 5 handcrafted, 5 3 cost. But I kind of like It Binds All Things because it'll help you save on the Shotos, Force Illusions, and Ancients also. I like the deck. I think there's some power plays in there if he's sitting on resources, which Hero Blue generally isn't. But with that possibility, like a Heightened Awareness into an Ataru Strike sounds very devastating. Kind of 5 damage potentially that you weren't expecting, and then you could follow that with a Riposte or something like that. So there's definitely some combo plays to get damage out of hand that some of these players might not be expecting. I was a little surprised. I think, and of course, I don't want to take anything away from this player, but I think if I was to run this deck, knowing where the meta's at, and we mentioned this, I think, in a Discord earlier, just talking about trying to get hand removal. And Blue Hero really doesn't have too much of that, but I think a great addition to this deck would be something like Close Quarters Assault. With all the melee sides you're rolling out, I think you'll have a potential to discard 3 to 4 cards from an opponent's hand, and that could really shut down any deck's turn, right? There's nothing to re-roll, there's nothing for them to play with, so that just kind of they roll out and they hope they do damage, and if they don't, then they have to just resolve what they get. So I think that would be a really good thing to put in this deck, and it would also give you 2 more great cards if you think Kylo 2 is going to be coming at you. So overall, I like this deck. I like seeing Qui-Gon doing well, and I like the fact that Ayla is just a pure damage character, so it's not just a bunch of resolving shields and stuff like that. So it did surprise me, 1 Force Illusion too, but with the amount of shields this deck is resolving, it's probably not something he has to worry about too much.
I like the deck. I like it a lot, actually. I'm not as high on It Binds All Things as you are. I feel like it's one of those cards where if you just don't see it early, it just doesn't do anything for you. That said, you can mulligan very hard for that card. So maybe that's part of the strategy. Destiny, I thought, was an interesting inclusion just because I feel like Qui-Gon sides are so good, Ayla's sides are so good that I just think it's hard to say that I would want to spend a card from hand and remove dice. I mean, if you could ramp out a big upgrade, sure, but at the same time, sometimes matchups would dictate that you don't have that luxury. You need to be dealing damage quickly, but the removal package is...
Yeah, maybe that's a reaping you could slot in there over Destiny. I think that might be a decent
Yeah, I
option
mean,
if you're looking to save resources.
you don't need... I mean, I don't know. You might be at a maximum amount of resources needed at that point. There's a lot of zero-cost events in the deck. I mean, not that many. I guess you got Guard and Riposte and Sound the Alarm, Synchronicity. So I guess there's a decent amount. The Power of the Force is interesting too. Between that, the Synchronicity, and the Riposte, you have a lot of like damage out of hand, Ataru Strike. So a lot of hidden information that's turned into damage. So it looks solid. It looks interesting.
Yeah, Power of the Force surprises me a little bit. I know we saw that back with Eric Wainwright's Ili Ayla Padawan, and I felt like that made sense there because that generally is vomiting dice pretty quickly, but I'm not sure that this deck is necessarily doing the same thing. So that surprised me a little bit, but also I've never played with it, so he could be getting out dice a lot more than I would think. So it could be something that's pretty good, but that seems like a borderline card a little bit too. And I don't know, but again, I really like the deck. I really like what it does. And it's something that it's probably too late for me to test, but something that I'll be making after my regionals are done because I love Qui-Gon. And I have the 8-bit alt art version from iRebel, which is awesome. I love her 8-bit alt art cards.
I mean, who doesn't love Liam Neeson, in all honesty?
Seriously, look at that face. All right, so that is that for Qui-Gon Ayla deck. Really good. And it is on Star Wars Destiny database, of course, again. And Hyperloops also added it to their gauntlet. So that is some credibility if they are adding it to that. I think that's something you guys definitely would want to check out, at least play a game or two against.
Yeah, the Hyperloops have a great gauntlet article. I would recommend that everybody that wants to practice for events, check that out. That is a great source.
Oh, absolutely. So that is that for Australia. And the last one that we have is from Warsaw, Poland. The winner of that was Yoda Hondo. Second place was Kylo Towson. And then we have Boba Phasma, Yoda Hondo in the top 4. And then the rest of the top 8 are Poe Hondo, Sabine Ezra, Zeb Yoda, Sabine Yoda. We don't necessarily have to dive too much into any of these decks. The Yoda Hondo is relatively similar to the one that won in Perth, Australia. A little bit of its own tweaks, but still, again, a lot of diversity there with the top decks. Maybe just a little bit of Yoda. 4 decks with Yoda is probably the only really repeat about that regional, but a lot of good stuff this weekend. So with that, we can move on. So basically what I did, I've been working with Jedi Geek Girl a little bit from iRebel. She has a great thing on her website. I believe it's called the Road to Regionals. And it basically has a Road to Regional Victory is what it is called. And that is on her website. And it basically, she will use a program and basically input the top 8 all the way to the winner of who won each regional, what decks, and even the names of some of those players. Obviously, United States ones are a little bit more filled in just because it's easier to get information from Chicago than it is from Warsaw, Poland. So with that, I took all of those and I compiled them down and broke them down into basically Legacy's top 8 decks, Legacy's top 8 characters, and then just hero and villain. Now, there is a little bit of an odd for anybody that actually would crunch the numbers. There is a number that is off, and that is because in this current set of statistics of numbers, there was the Seventh Sister Tarkin regional from Canada, I believe, that was relatively early on, in which it was a top 4 cut, and we only have 3 of those decks. So we are actually a deck short and also without a top 8 in that instance. So things are a little bit off from there, but we can kick it off. And so far, we'll go over the winners. Right now, we have, out of everything that's compiled on that website, from the Road to Regional Victory, there are winners. There are 3 hero vehicles, 3 Yoda Hondo, 2 Sabine Ezras, 2 Blue-Red OTK, 1 Poe Hondo, 1 Obi Maz, 1 Kylo Towson, 1 Tarkin Seven Sister, 1 Sabine Yoda, 1 Hero Mill, 1 Ayla Padawan. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is that 12 different decks? Unless I can't count, which is, I think, very good. Of course, there's repeats, but having 12 different decks win regionals a month in, I think is just awesome.
I think it's 11, but yes, it is awesome.
11. Yeah, I can't count. So don't listen to me. I got nervous. I was counting on podcasts. So I just couldn't do it.
I think it's fantastic that there's that much diversity. And it is, I mean, you can only say it's a young meta for so long. Are things rising to the top or becoming more popular? Yes, but there are a number of things that have become popular. So you could say that the blue-red OTK is rising to the top, and yes, that is an extremely powerful deck with a ceiling unlike any other deck maybe in the meta. But you're almost walking a tightrope the entire game of disaster or extreme victory. So it does require a certain amount of skill and finesse to pilot something like that. And Sabine Ezra, or just Sabine X in general, is a very powerful deck archetype as well that I think people are going to start running a lot more of. And then we've been seeing the special chaining decks of the Yoda Hondo Po 2, where you can, choose your combination and roll with that. And those have been successful. And vehicles is also rise to the top. And I think that's good. If it's 4 decks that are primarily taking down events, I think that's not the worst spot to be. It's definitely better than some of the metas we've seen in the past, and I still think that every now and again you will see a unique character pairing that we haven't seen in a while take an event.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, we did that Empire at War very similar. We took all the regional winners, and it was like 70% was R2P2. And of course, we talked about the factors and stuff like that of it kind of being the end of a meta, everybody waiting for legacies and tired of it. So nobody really got creative, but still, it was around 70% of the winning decks were R2P2. And here, the top deck, and of course, like we said, it's still early, things are going to rise to the top, but currently the top decks are with 3 wins each, and that puts it at 17.6. So like 18% of the regionals hero vehicles won, and another 18% Yoda Hondo has won. So it's super interesting, and it's a lot better for the meta as a whole to not have one deck be 70 to 80% of the winnings.
Yeah, it's definitely a better spot to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll peek down next, and I made these into pie charts because I'm a loser and I don't have anything else to do with my time. So I'll also be posting these pie charts on our Facebook page for anybody interested to take a peek at them. If you like pie charts also, it just kind of reminds me of pizza, and I like pizza. I'll just start calling them pizza charts. I like pizza better than pie. So our runners up, we have 3 Kylo 2000s, 2 Sabine Ezras, 2 Poe Hondos, 2 Obi Maz, 2 hero vehicles, 1 Sabine Yoda, 1 Qui-Gon Yoda, 1 Qui-Gon Kanan, and 1 Poe Yoda. Sorry, I messed up towards the end there. It's 2 hero mill in runner up and 1 hero vehicle in runner up. So still, again, very, very diverse, and it's interesting to see Kylo 2000 get there. Almost. They've been in the finals 4 times, but only won once. But still, of course, runner-up is still a great breakdown with Kylo 2000 being the most at 18%. So still healthy, still good, and even a little bit more variance here than in the top deck. Oh, and 1 Qui-Gon Ayla. Sorry, they got cut off my page a little bit. So still very good. Top 4, we've got 4 hero vehicles, 3 Kylo 1000s, 3 Poe Hondos, 2 Obi Maz, 2 Yoda Hondos, 2 Blue-Red OTK, 2 Tarkin 7th, 2 Pola Ayla, 2 Boba 7th, 2 Boba Phasma, and then the rest of these will be one-ofs. Sabine Ezra, Sabine Yoda, Qui-Gon Kanan, Zeb Yoda, Mother Bala, First Order Stormtrooper, Han Rey, Ayla, Temple Guard Padawan, Zeb Rey, Zeb Kanan, and Elite Kylo, Elite Vader too. That was so weird typing that out. I wasn't expecting that to pop its head up in this meta, since both the characters are I don't know. They really haven't seen too much play recently.
Where? I don't even remember seeing that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at exactly what one that popped its head up in. But that was, as soon as I read that, I was like,
wow. I guess you could deal some damage with that deck still.
Yeah, I mean, Vader too can really just pump out damage. I mean, it's just kind of who he is. I was trying to see if I could find it real quick, but I don't want to scroll through too much and kind of lose my train of thought. But either way, that's kind of cool to see that. But I don't think it's anything too crazy. And again, of course, still plenty of breakdowns. But as we go into top 8 is where it becomes a little bit weird or a little bit more unbalanced. And that is because we start off with 12 Poe Hondos. And then the next closest is 5 hero vehicles, 5 Obi Maz, 4 Tarkin 7 Sister, and 3 Zeb Yodas. And then the rest, there's a whole bunch. I don't want to read through them all necessarily, but there's a bunch of 2s and 1s after that of like, Mother Bala, Sabine Yoda, Poe Ayla, OTK, Ayla Rey Wookiee, fantastic deck. But what is interesting from that, it's actually really just one regional from Europe somewhere in which Poe Hondo was like all of the top 8. And that just kind of added like 5 to 6 extra Poe Hondos that necessarily wouldn't have been the case otherwise. That probably would have brought that number down. But that top 8, had probably 5 to 6 Poe Hondos in it, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot of Poe Hondo across the pond.
Yeah, and I think that's the nature of that deck winning the first big tournament type thing.
Yeah.
It's the Ayla Padawan. I think everybody looking at that, and especially if you followed coverage of it, you would know who Eric is, and that's just kind of his deck. But I don't think anybody really was too worried about that becoming the top thing. But we all knew Ayla was a good character, but maybe not necessarily in that setup. Whereas when Poe Hondo won the Portland one, it was just kind of broke onto the scene. Everybody knew Poe was a really good character, and Hondo seemed really good, special chaining. So it was just people gravitating towards that deck early and kind of staying with it. So it doesn't surprise me to see that doing so well in the top 8. But as you could see, it kind of fell off with it only winning 1 of the regionals so far, despite having 12 in the top 8. And also to note about this is that I didn't double up. These are all unique decks. So like I said, there's 3 hero vehicles that won, but I didn't include them in the statistic for the 5 hero vehicles in the top 8. So ultimately you would have to add all these up, and that's how many unique decks of that version.
So the top 8 would represent 8th, 7th, 6th, and 5th only. You would be excluding 4th through 1st. When you list the top 8.
Absolutely.
For the listeners.
That's why I have you here, man. You explain some things
so much better than I do.
Yeah, so I mean the total decks I also have and calculated too, with the most decks in top 8 and above would be Poe 2 Hondo, and that's 18 of them. The next would be Ayla, Rose, Ezra, the hero vehicles, with 13. Obi Maz in third with 10. After that, you got Tarkin, 7th sister, with 7 spots. Then we got Zeb Yoda with 4, and things start to change around after that. Kylo Talzin with 9. So there's definitely a pretty good spread. Poe Hondo's up there at the most, but I wouldn't really go too crazy about anything in that sense, just because I think that was just a natural reaction to most things. And also, in my glorious amounts of free time that I have, I also compiled numbers based on the top 8 characters. And this is, I'll just say the totals, and this is from top 8 and on. So these are the amount of times that this character appeared in any form of a deck. And the most is Yoda with 27. He was in 27 different decks. Hondo was in 24. Poe 2 was in 23. Ayla was in 20. Ezra Bridger was in 20. 7th sister in 16 in 6th place. Mother Talzin with 13. Rose with 13. Sabine with 10, and Maz with 11 rounds out the top 10. So those are the most played characters, and it's a pretty substantial drop off from 1st down to 10th, right? You have 27 with Yoda, and then you get to Maz in 10th, who has 11 appearances. So it's definitely something to prepare for. You're going to see Yoda, you're going to see Hondo, you're going to see Poe, you're going to see Ayla and Ezra. So these are some of the characters that you have to be ready for. Maybe not Ezra specifically, but that just means there's a lot of hero vehicles and there's a lot of Sabine.
Yep, that is true.
Yeah, so I mean, I like it a lot. And then the last little statistic I did was top 8 of heroes and villains, and there were 90 hero decks in the top 8 and 21 villain. And again, please remember that we are missing 1 number from a top 4, so that is why there is a little odd number of top 8 stuff, and it was also a top 4 that was missing. So numbers are a little bit off if you just break it down by top 8. So that's substantial, I think, right? 90 hero decks to 21 villain decks.
Yeah, I would say of all the numbers we've crunched here, and all the listeners that we've put to sleep that aren't math nerds, I would say that is probably the most alarming, not alarming, I don't think that's the right word, but interesting and staggering number we've seen so far is the 90 to 21 hero to villain ratio.
Very interesting for me. But winners, is also something important to look at. And there's been 13 hero winners to villain 4. So it's still a little bit, almost 3 times more hero decks have been winning as compared to villain. But I don't think it's as crazy, because I think the hero decks have a little bit more variance about who you can plug in and where villain decks kind of seem a little bit more straightforward. Like, Yoda, you can put him with Poe, you could put him with Hondo, you could put him in a mill deck, you could put him in a vehicle deck like we saw in New Jersey and in Chicago. Whereas Kylo Talzin, there's really not much variance between that. If you're planning to bring Kylo, you're probably running Talzin with him. With Rivals, you might run Anakin with him now, but still, there's a lot less variance in that as there is to hero deck.
Yeah, I think hero just got a lot of interesting pairings. And I do think Talzin opens some doors on the villain side, but I think that the abundance of cheaper hero characters that can fit in a lot of interesting slots is what's driving that number so high.
Yep, so that is that. That just about covers everything that I had hoped to talk about.
Well, Jack, what are you going to be bringing? Let's narrow it down here. What are we going to get to? When you're sitting down, if you were sitting down tonight and you were playing at your regional, what are you bringing?
Man, I think if I go tonight, I'm probably the deck I'm most comfortable with is Sabine Ezra. It's probably the most reps I've gotten in. It's probably the most I've played with recently, and also I have experience with it back in Empire at War. We've talked about how Maz's Vault, Hidden Blaster, and removal like easy pickings and in the garbage chute kind of pushed it to a new level. But it's just been something that I played with before. I feel comfortable. I've played a little bit of the blue red OTK, but that's just something I would need a lot more practice with for me to feel comfortable bringing that to a regional. I know it's got a high ceiling, but it's also can be complicated to pilot sometimes, and I don't want to just show up and do that wrong. And then also my thought process is 7 Tarkin. I know it's a good deck playing against you and Joe plenty with it. And, maybe I played with Yoda Honda the other day. Maybe I just go absolutely insane and just bring that, but I'll probably bring Sabine Ezra.
I think so.
Not that,
go with what you know.
Not that Yoda Honda is a bad deck, just that I haven't played with it. That's why I would say I'd be insane.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. But I'm curious. You said Brian's been playing Tarkin 7th. What kind of list is he running with that?
Pretty much similar to what you were running.
Okay.
I think he talked to Joe on Monday, and I think he has extra, maybe 2 manipulates in there, and it kind of goes for that anger play a little bit more.
Okay.
But yeah, generally the same to kind of what you were running when you went to your regionals.
Yeah, I think I'm back. I'm more high on anger than I was going into the Booten regional, just because I took it out because I felt like special chaining was going to be more prominent, and I think where we still have the special training, specifically like Hondo Yoda, because it's just almost zero value in that matchup. But I think that there's enough other decks that have damage sides that reversing them on them is worth it for the anger play. I'm not real big on manipulate personally, but I see its synergy with anger. But I actually think it's overkill to have manipulate and anger in that deck because you've already got so many blank sides.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because especially if you expect to see Yoda, good luck playing manipulate on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I might throw together that Qui-Gon Ayla deck just because I love Qui-Gon, but I really doubt I'll even seriously consider that. Not because it's bad, but because I'm just about a week out, and I don't know if I'd feel comfortable bringing a deck that I've only been playing for a week and maybe got 15, 20 games in with. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of Sabine, and I feel comfortable whether she rules bad or not, just being able to play out of some of those situations. I feel like I'm able to do that a little bit, but again, just worried about not drawing into some of the big mitigation cards that I need, like the Impersonate or Second Chance or stuff like that. Because if Sabine dies turn 2, that's pretty much game, unless I was able to take out their big character too in the process.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I'm at. See you guys in Maryland if you guys are coming down there. But we got 5 regionals coming up. So there's 2 in the United States, 2 in the UK, and 1 in Canada is what I have written down. So we got plenty of content also for next week to analyze how the meta is evolving, what decks did well. So I'm excited for that. And we've got plenty of stuff to talk about. Any parting thoughts, Tommy, before we close out?
Yeah, let's try to get Shane back and see if we can get another list out of Shane. Let's see if we can tie him down and find out something else that he has on his mind that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I'll tie him up in the basement again and make him talk about his weird decks. Yeah, he busted out a Kane and Lando deck the other day, so maybe we can get some spice with that on here.
There you go. Is that his melee yellow build?
Yeah,
Vibro Cutlass and all?
Yeah, he's got Vibro Cutlass, but then he's got like partnership, and he's got one with the Force. So if Kanan dies, he partnerships with one with the Force, and I'm just like, what just happened?
He's such a degenerate. I love it.
It's fun to play against this type of deck. Sometimes it's refreshing, so I don't have to play against OTK or hero vehicles anymore. But yeah, we should definitely get him on for next week.
I agree.
And also, we've had a few people message the Facebook page saying that they tried Tarkin Towson, and it seemed like people think that's actually half legit. So
okay,
you heard it here first.
Wow, I'm interested to see if we see Lobot Cad or Lobot Kylo, because I think those are both potential pairings.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
That's true, dude. And I'll have to say, I don't really think anybody will be bringing Thrawn that much, but I was testing OTK against his Thrawn Towson deck, and man, that's annoying. Him calling 1 every time and taking the combo plays out of my hand.
Yeah, that's solid. Oh, lightsaber pull. Oh, cool. 3.
Yeah, exactly. You got to wait till Thrawn activates. And that's something I think would kind of throw people off a little bit. Not many people are ready for Thrawn. But that just about does it for this week. Looking forward, we got Tommy writing an article for our Patreon. So if anybody's looking to, benefits of becoming a Patreon and helping support us, it'll just be a more in-depth kind of article and conversation you can have with him about his Seven Sister Tarkin deck and how he brought, any changes he feels like he should make. And again, we're not going to be necessarily hiding stuff behind a paywall. Of course, he came on here, he talked about how he did, and we weren't trying to hide anything. And I'll be doing the same thing. I'll come on here, I'll talk about it, but more in-depth analysis might be on Patreon. So that's just something we've got a few, so we want to give something back to you guys. We don't, even if it's $1 a month, we still want you guys walking away with, a little extra something from us rather than just, subscribing. So.
Yeah. The only thing that I hope to get across in the article is really, I don't want to just break down, talk about what's in my deck. That I don't think that's valuable, but I do have, probably 100 games in. I'm looking at my board. I have over 100 games in with it, so I understand a lot of the matchups. I understand the decisions I made on the card selection in the deck and the evolution of it. And what I want to do is I want to be able to put into writing that experience so that if somebody's interested in trying the deck out, that it can start from a higher point than where I started, and they can, grow with the deck in an accelerated rate. Is my hope. So that's what I'd like to portray. I'm going to really try to do my best. It's probably going to end up being a 2-part article, but
cool.
We'll see how it goes.
Cool. And with Patreon subscriptions, you get access to our Discord, and ours is probably just the way we've talked about it, and kind of I think it's the best way. It'll just be more of like an intimate thing, just with us and our Patreon. So it's an easy way for you to message Tommy and talk to him about it, because he's probably got the better answers and more intelligent than me. So
stop selling yourself.
Definitely have a
short, Jack. You can't get any lower than I am.
I could come in 10th.
I guess that's true.
But yeah, so it's just an extra way for you guys to connect with us, and also us give back to the support that you guys are throwing at us, which is absolutely awesome. We can't thank you guys enough for that.
It's just so flattering. It doesn't have anything to do with money at all. It literally is just flattering that people value what we say. Yeah.
So there's that. Something to look forward to if you guys are interested in doing that. We've got a Twitter now that I've kind of been using a little bit, posting some of our extra YouTube content of our gameplay videos and our podcasts and stuff like that. So of course we're on YouTube also, and Facebook, and we're on iTunes, Google Play. So there's plenty of places for you guys to take a listen to our content and figure us out and get in contact with us and all that good stuff. So with that, I will catch you guys next week.